mutual elevation and social advancement. Mutual. I want to say from the outstart that when I think of a mutual, you think of something that is of the same, you know, the same of the, could be the same kind, just the same, mutual balance. We say that which is mutual respect and that which is to be reciprocated, mutual. And when you have that which is reciprocated and it's mutual, then there is the elevation because it is uplifting. It is encouraging. And when you think of that which is elevating you, could be a elevator, which is something that is mechanical and it has a certain capacity to it. Anytime you have a capacity to something, it determines what it can and cannot withstand. The weight, the weight. Doing so for the mutual elevation should be done so for social advancement. Social advancement. Yes, I um, had to re-edit my latest book here. Uh, you can make a difference, and the working lessons and teachings of Common Humanity Mission, the Human Restoration Project, the Human Restoration Project. I have something in there that says that strength does not come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things you once thought that you couldn't. Let's try to build on that if we can, as it relates to mutual elevation and social advancement. I always say for me there's four keys to success, and the four keys to success is deal with values, uh, virtues, views, and vices. And we have to deal with one's incentives, initiatives, influences, and directives. I always say that I try to promote the value of self worth. And when you promote the value of self worth, worth is in the degree of worth, but one's value is unlimited. Strength does not come, doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things that you thought you once you couldn't overcome. Many associate strength with something that is physical. I've learned that we have lost are losing our ability to exercise our ability to logically learn how to reason with one another. Because I realize that we need to learn to reason from the premise of conversation, and we got to deal with dialectical therapy. And when we learn to reason from the premise of conversation, we learn to reason with progression rather than regression. Because I realize that there are two struggles in the forefront for me. Is one, to reason with progression rather than regression, and common sense versus nonsense. Dialectical therapy, acceptance and change, mindfulness, emotional regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, distress and tolerance. Mindfulness, being aware of the present moment without judgment. Distress tolerance, managing a crisis. We need to learn how to manage a crisis without making it worse, and regulate our emotions, understanding, reducing to the vulnerability to its emotions and changing emotions. Now let's look at that, because people have taken advantage of one's vulnerability. Because I have realized that our inner conversations that we have with ourselves more than likely create our circumstances. So we have to not allow the mood or the emotions of others to change our mood. That's challenging. That's challenging. Let's look at that again now. When it comes to emotional regulation, what easily offends people? Because I said earlier about we are losing, when I'm talking about strength, our ability to learn how to logically reason with one another. Because we can have too much emotion, not enough logic, and too much logic and not enough emotions. As I start off, mutual elevation for social advancement is the balance. Because when you have balance, understanding speaks clearly. So there is a lack of understanding. Out of understanding comes consciousness. And then we realize that we have to come to a point that nature comes to awaken our conscious. And when it is awakened, and therefore we become responsible. So then therefore it is an irresponsibility that one has, or that is displaying, because vanity is the enemy of consciousness, being very vain. But yes, back to this emotional regulation. The understanding, reducing vulnerability to emotions, changing emotions. we do have mood swings. The challenge is, do we allow our moods to overwhelm us where we do not make a logical decision, that we make a decision that is emotional, which represents a sense of instability. Instability. Yes. So, interpersonal effectiveness. I realize this here is that when it comes to human relations and human relationships, the way we connect and the actual connection is it of itself. If one person says that he or she is about independence, while at the same time is subjecting others, and they are not free, and the other individual who has deemed himself not to be free observe the model, and he or she wants to emulate that model, and will take any risk at all costs to emulate that model, and whatever the risk there may be to free himself from being subjected to someone else's ways and someone else's whims. Is that commendable? Because we live in a society, not on a word oppressive environment, where people look at the models of others and emulate that model, and don't care whatever risk they are taking to eliminate and alleviate themselves from feelings of being subjected to the whims and the ways of others, or to an inferior position. And it wind up costing them their life. So then we have to deal with the cost benefit analysis, if I may use that term. Is the risk worth it? I often hear of individuals. Often, when I use the word often, I think of a term called frequency. Your vibe as a tribe, that what you do often or hear often, is that they participate, they are placed in a compromised situation, and then they're put in a situation where they have to do something that even jeopardizes them as well, and they make a little change, a little money, and then they wind up getting caught and put in jail for what they made. And maybe they will say that the risk was worth it. So then we deal with certain windows that is given to us, and I would say two, and I'm not confining just to two windows. I'm not minimizing anyone's options. Instant gratification, and the other one is education. I just use those two. Instant gratification, drugs, women, cars, sports, all that stuff. Instant gratification. The other one is set goals, education, life struggles. Let's put it that way. I mean, I'm just trying to make a point. It is the instant gratification. So it is the instant gratification and the risk that is involved more more of a asset than a liability as it pertains to going to school, getting an education, setting goals, and you know, uh, and dealing with life struggles. Let's put it that way. Now, everyone has to make his or her own decision. The challenge is the decision uh, has more does the culture have influence of one's decision? Does the culture have more influence over the goals that the family may have? But if the family is unstable, then the individual goes out and make his or her own decision. What if the family is stable? Then the individual just is drawn out there to make a decision without doing a cost benefit analysis, but looking for a instant gratification. That's kind of something to think about. That's kind of something to think about. I know personally that there were instant gratifications in my life, and quite honestly, I'm still challenged by them. I personally, you put out certain materials, certain products. You publish, you get books published, not by a major publisher, but yet at the same time, I'm still getting the product out, and I'm thankful for the support that I am getting. And then you have to deal with getting somewhere in life and where you want to go with having your integrity and dignity intact. So, is the risk worth it? Now, we know that we live in a society that glamorizes uh, certain inappropriate behavior and what is deemed to be an inappropriate and indecent lifestyle. You know, crime, corruption, murder, chaos, confusion. And that seemed to be glamorized. Now, that's he or she who controls the projection can project anything that they want to project. So, what is the solution? The solution is that one has to control the image of how he or she sees himself, how he or she wants to be seen, and be very careful that people are following you and your example blindly. And when people follow you blindly, and then someone is, and the image is distorted, when the image is distorted, then that means that the blind is leading the blind. Yes. But once you control the image of what is being projected and how you see yourself and how you want others to see you is a living example. And then The next solution is the communication system. It's the communication system. Yeah. Yeah, once you control the communication system, which means the language, you know, um, because people are using language to further really put people at odds with one another or in an inferior position, to subject them. And it's associated with uh, buffoonism, being a buffoon. I'm not trying to downplay anyone, but just very silly, very childish language, vocabulary. Baby. Who's a baby? 50 years old, baby. You going to the crib, baby. It's just perverted language, keeping you in a childish, immature state of mind and behavior. And it becomes glamorized, celebrated. That's why I say you have to be careful. Because people follow you blindly. They lack the value of self worth. They need guidance. And then someone behind the scene will distort the image. And you allow them to distort that image of you. Then therefore, it is the blind leading the blind. But if the blind is leading the blind, and if there is a puppet, you know that there is a puppeteer. Someone that is behind the scenes. So there are things that we must not fall asleep on, such as when it comes to holding on to our integrity and our dignity. I remember it was a brother who wanted to dress with dignity during the menstrual period. One brother said he didn't want to, another brother said he didn't want to wear the black face no more. One brother just couldn't help it that the best model that he had of trying to get himself out of his inferior posture and inferior position was the one that put him there. So therefore, that continued to breed instability and a sense of insecurity, and try to fill that void with his title, his celebrity, his money, his wealth, and his fame. It's called compensation. It's the emotional suppression. Not getting in touch with his emotions. Not able to, in dialectical therapy, not able to regulate his emotions. That his emotions was regulating him. So we must be clear. When it comes to mutual elevation and social advancement and human relations and human relationships, that we learn how to exercise our ability and our strength in overcoming, not allowing our emotions to regulate us, but regulate our emotions. doing so, we can, with integrity and dignity, control the image of ourselves and that image which is being projected. And once we control that image and that which is being projected, we don't have to go around trying to prove and make a reputation for ourselves and being celebrated by foolishness when you hurt your fellow human being or hurt someone that even looks like you, and then you're celebrated by that. That's not controlling the projection of the image. That's someone controlling the projection of the image that they are perpetuating and promoting and putting out there for others to follow. And that is appealing to one's emotions. Then therefore, when one is unable to regulate his or her emotions, they will communicate that foolishness. And act it out in behavior. Until next time. Yes, talk to you. By the way, I forgot, if anyone interested in purchasing the book, You Can Make a Difference. Hey man, I'm just trying to hold on the best way I can. The working and lessons and teachings of Common Humanity Mission. The restoration process. The Human Restoration Project, I should say. The Human Restoration Project, because I've learned that society is under social reconstruction, and where our feelings are becoming desensitized, our thoughts demoralized, our attitude dehumanized, our communication devitalized, and our activity destabilized, meaning we're dealing with a spirit of apathy. And remember, two things: that which occupies the mind conditions the mind. That's just the nature of the mind. I repeat, that which occupies the mind conditions the mind. That's just the nature of the mind. Three things. The second thing: the same level of consciousness that created the problem won't solve the problem. The same level of consciousness that created the problem won't solve the problem. And one more. Someone said that vision stems from the source of your thinking. Four things, and one more thing. Someone says that all that we are and all that we possess, I'm paraphrasing, is a result of thought. All that we are and what we possess is a result of thought. How so? Every thought possibly begins with a seed, and the seed that has been sown is our potential. And once we tap into our potential and cultivate that potential, it will place us in a better position to move from sympathy to empathy and do things with a sense of holding on to our integrity, which is our word, and our dignity. Those which has come before have come to restore dignity, human dignity. Talk to you.